Tonight's Thursday night is another meeting of Dallas Singles Toastmasters. And we'll go to our website at dallassinglestm.com and under
Dallas Social.
DallasSocialToastmasters.com. And we can look at under current agenda, and there's our agenda. And I'll go ahead and turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster, Mark Schroeder.
Thank you so much, Karen. Just a quick introduction for anybody that is not used to it. We've got a couple of buttons on the bottom. There's a participants link to look at all the participants. There's a chat. And if you have any questions, Karen is going to be our Zoom coordinator for the most part tonight. I will be her backup, but you can always chat to Karen Lee if you have a problem while we're doing Zoom, if you need attention. In each of the little squares at the top, assuming that you're on a PC or a Mac, you'll see a dot, dot, dot. In that dot, 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 you will also find a pin choice. And if you pin someone, that puts them on your screen permanently, even if they're not talking. Otherwise, usually it switches to whoever is talking. But if you're actually trying to time your own speech and looking for the timer's results to report, then you will need to pin the timer so that you see them. For the most part, I'm going to try to keep everybody muted tonight just to keep all the sound kind of quiet. It's been a little while since we've been on Zoom for everybody, since we've been doing in person. And of course, you have the view button up there in the upper right-hand column as well. The view, you can select either the speaker or the gallery view. The gallery view shows you as many of us as will fit on your screen at the time. So you can use that as well. And Karen already pointed out our agenda. Just a quick one. Karen was using one of our old URLs, which was Dallas Single TM, because we used to be Dallas Singles Toastmasters. We are now Dallas Social Toastmasters. So it's actually DallasSocialToastmasters.com. The other URL still works. We never got rid of it. And we didn't get rid of it because we still have emails out there with that as the reply address, just in case somebody comes back after a while since we changed our name. Today we're talking about Cinco de Mayo. So everybody who has a margarita, congratulations on joining us for Cinco de Mayo. I had to go out, and if for those of you who remember a person in our club who used to be named named Matt, Matt would always go to Mexican restaurants and order a Hornitos tequila margarita. This is in fact a Hornitos margarita in honor of Matt. I had a choice between that and Jose Cuervo, and I picked the Hornitos. So everyone drink up and enjoy Cinco de Mayo. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Cinco de Mayo today, and then of course going to our duty holders. Let me just tell you a couple of interesting facts perhaps about Cinco de Mayo. A lot of people think that Cinco de Mayo is the equivalent of our July 4th, that it's Mexican Independence Day. It's not. It's not even close, in fact. Mexico did achieve a major victory against the French at the Battle of Pueblo in May of 1862, and 1862 is about the time of the Civil War. But it was actually just a morale booster against the French because they had managed with 2,000 soldiers, many of whom hid behind tall cactuses. They defeated 6,000 French soldiers during the battle. Now they still lost the war, but in some senses, the Battle of Pueblo, and which is what is celebrated for Cinco de Mayo, is very akin in some senses, I guess, to our Alamo here in the Texas area. They were very seriously outnumbered and they had poor supplies, yet they were still victorious. And in fact, Pueblo was renamed Pueblo de Zaragoza in the General Ignacio Zaragoza's honor because of his victory in that battle. But again, it is not Mexican Independence Day. Now, personally, I don't understand why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo, because we don't celebrate Seis de Mustard or Siete de Ketchup, but you know, whatever, it's what we do. It's also not a federal holiday in Mexico, although it's celebrated in Puebla, of course, where the battle occurred. It really is much bigger in the U.S. than it is anywhere in Mexico, which is kind of a surprise. The children do get off of school for May 5th, but that's kind of one of the larger ways that it is observed in Mexico. it was observed here partially because it was brought to the US, believe it or not, by FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Back in 1933, to improve relations with the Latin American country, there was I didn't write that down. I didn't actually write it down. But there was, oh, yes, I did. The good neighbor policy. There was a good neighbor policy that was passed in 1933, which basically helped the relations between us, the US, and Latin American countries. And that was one of the things that bootstrapped, if you will, Cinco de Mayo for the rest of the US. It was already celebrated pretty heavily in California because of all of the immigrants for years and years before that. But it was only in 1933 that it started being really, really popular in the rest of the US as a national holiday. Celebrated typically with street festivals. I've been to a few Cinco de Mayo celebrations at Mexican restaurants, and many of them, they actually take over the area outside so that it becomes a street festival. And it usually has live music, dancing, food and drink, of course. No surprises there. Now you may think, okay, it's certainly not, we're Thursday, so it's certainly not Taco Tuesday, but tacos, enchiladas, etc., those are not the meal that is the official dinner or the official meal of Cinco de Mayo. Mole Pueblo, let me get it right, mole poblano. Poblano, of course, being the pepper, is the actual dish. It's a dark brown sauce made from Mexican chocolate and a boatload of spices. Very bold in flavor, divine balance of texture. And there are a few places here in town, if you go to a real Mexican restaurant, instead of just a Tex-Mex, you can actually get mole sauce. You guessed why that is the one. That was, I don't know how it originated, but it apparently came from the city of Pueblo, which is, of course, where the battle was won. It is a national holiday in the US. You might not realize that, but it was actually made a national holiday in 2005. So that's fairly recent. And that was done by, of all people, George W. Bush. And even though people were taking advantage of it before then, at that point, it became a national holiday. It's celebrated around the globe, celebrated in, of all places, Canada, Australia, and even Japan. Los Angeles probably has the largest celebration. In Vancouver, they celebrated in a very unusual way. In Vancouver, they celebrated by doing what is called skydiving boogie. And it involves aerial acrobatics and an annual air show. So they're doing something very different for it, but it is interesting. Let me go into a few of our duty holders, and I'll come back with a couple of final comments. We will start with our timer. Our timer tonight is Levi Job. Levi, would you tell us what you're going to be doing for your duty as timer, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. As a timer, I'll be helping the speakers practice expressing a thought within a specific time. My duty during this meeting is to time prepare speeches, table topics, and speech evaluations. The green card, I was lucky to find some nice folder cards here. The green card will indicate a minimum goal time. The yellow card is your target goal time. And then the red card is the maximum goal time. And you have 30 seconds from this to finish up. For any speeches between 5 to 7 minutes, I'll show the green card at 5 minutes, the yellow card at 6 minutes, and the red card at 7 minutes. And then from there, you have another 30 seconds to finish. For table topics, each speaker is encouraged to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. I'll show the green card again at 1 minute, yellow card at 1 minute and 30 seconds, and the red card at 2 minutes, and you'll again have 30 seconds to finish. For evaluators, you have 2 to 3 minutes. The green card is shown at 2 minutes, the yellow card at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the red card at 3 minutes. And then again, you have 30 seconds to finish. If you speak under or over time by more than 30 seconds, you'll be disqualified and will not be eligible for awards. However, for table topics, you must at least reach 1 minute, and there is no grace for that. At the very end, I will report qualifying times when called upon at the end of the meeting. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you so much, Levi. Great job. Our posture bell tonight is Jessica. Now, Jessica, I don't know that I've actually had to pronounce your last name. I'm going to butcher it, but is it Guadagnino? You're on mute. You are still on mute, Jessica.
I know,
Pueblo.
sorry. I was trying to move over. It's
How do you pronounce your last name?
Guadagnino.
Guadagnino. Okay, no Enye on it. Okay.
Nope, yep, exactly. All right, I'm on my phone, so I'm switching over. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guest. As posture monitor, I'll be watching all meeting attendees to identify unusual or distracting posture, such as head scratching, grasping the lectern, which in this case we don't have, hands in pockets, hand clasping or ringing, forward or reverse fig leaf, hair flipping, foot tapping, or other distracting gestures. I will also be looking for posture gestures and facial expressions which enhance the speaker's points, and I will take notes accordingly. Normally, when I see distracting posture and/or gestures, I would use the bell to notify the speaker, except during prepared speeches. However, currently during these virtual times, not only will I not ring the bell during prepared speeches, I may not ring the bell during the entire meeting, depending on my access to a bell and capability to do so, which for the record, I do not have. I will, however, keep track and notate these types of distractions I'm writing throughout the meeting for each person who speaks, which are the big three: prepared speakers, table topic contestants, evaluators, and duty holders. I will also note any audience member's posture if it indicates that he or she is not paying attention to the speaker. I'll report the results at the end of the meeting when called upon by the general evaluator. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Jessica. For what it's worth, I've been tapping throughout this entire thing, and I defy you to be able to detect that and call me out on it, but that's okay. It is what it is. All right, our AHK counter this evening is going to be Lisa Mitchell. Lisa, please tell us what you'll be doing for us as the AHK counter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and welcome guest. My duty as the AHK counter is to listen carefully for verbal distractions, such as you know, and so, but, and other filler words or sounds. I will also keep track of repeated words like the, and I. Lastly, I will keep track of long pauses when they are distracting. Since this meeting is virtual, I will not use the clicker to notify the speakers. I will, however, keep track of the number of these types of speaking errors in writing. And then at the end of the meeting, I will give a report when called upon by the general evaluator. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lisa. And of course, for the AHK counter, anytime we do hear an ah, an or a so, everyone is required to take a tequila shot. Boy, that will make this meeting really fun, wouldn't it? All right, next is our vote counter. Our vote counter for this evening is going to be Barry Winkler. Barry, what are you going to do for us as our vote counter tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, at vote counter, I will accept votes through the private chat to me and count the votes after the audience votes for best speaker, best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and best of the big three. The big three are the Toastmaster, the tabletop master, table topics master, and the general evaluator. I will record which person wins in each category. I will not cast a vote for myself, except in the case of a tie, in which case I will cast a vote to break the tie. However, I will not announce that there was a tie vote. Again, place your vote by sending me a message in the private chat only to me. At the end of the meeting, I will announce the winners. You may also, as I encourage you to do so, send comments to each speaker, evaluator, and table topics participant by sending private chat messages to the person directly. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you much, Barry. All right, if you remember our agenda, you saw the grammarian was open. It is not open anymore, and we have moved Dagan Newland from being a speaker into being our grammarian. Dagan, what will you be doing for us as grammarian tonight?
Yes, as grammarian, I'll be keeping track of the English language, whether it be good or bad. And I'll make notations throughout the meeting, give my report at the end. And the second part of that is to give the word of the day, which is going to be carouse, verb to engage in a drunken revel. So, and again, you must use that word of the day during table topics as one of the qualifications to qualify for table topics. And if you can, if anybody can, fit it throughout the meeting. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Perfect choice of word for the day. Absolutely, Dagan. I appreciate that. And just a quick shout out, all of the scripts that you guys just got through using that are specific to Zoom were created by Rob Giles. Thank you once again to Rob for putting those together. We've had the ones for in person for quite a while, but Rob is the person who put together the special versions for our Zoom meetings. And we do appreciate it because the rules are a little bit different. Zoom just doesn't work the same. Well, before I go on to the prepared speeches, although John, get ready, you're on deck next. I'm going to go back to the carouse just a little bit, because one of the things that happens during Cinco de Mayo is Americans eat and drink a lot, okay, during Cinco de Mayo. And in particular, how many pounds, let's put it that way, of avocados would you think Americans go through on Cinco de Mayo? The answer is it is an staggering 87 million pounds of avocados.
Oh.
And a lot of that, of course, goes into guacamole. Tequila. Okay, even skipping the tequila for the tequila shots that we're going to do tonight, if you look at all the tequila that gets consumed in all the margaritas, 126 million liters of tequila consumed. And if you were to go out to a bar, I don't want to say that you don't have to make any other drinks, but let's just say that 47% of the drinks consumed and ordered today are margaritas. I'm hoping tonight that we're able to get that up to about 50%. We're going to push it as hard as we can, but that's going to be the goal. And beer sales are also up on the Cinco de Mayo, probably because of Corona and some of the other Mexican beers, around $658 million just from Cinco de Mayo alone. All right, with those facts and interesting things to know about Cinco de Mayo, we're going to go into our first section of the meeting, which is prepared speeches. We have one prepared speaker tonight, and that is going to be John Vessels. He has prepared a speech tonight, and his evaluator will be Mark Sims. Mark, please tell us how you will be evaluating John Vessels' speech.
John is speaking tonight and the speech title is Self-Promotion. This is in the visionary communication path. The time length is 5 to 7 minutes. And I'm going to be giving just a general review on how effective the speech is, how informative that it is. No special aspects that John requested me to look at. I'll definitely be interested in myself because I struggle with self-promotion in an appropriate way. So again, that is our speech title for tonight, self-promotion, 5 to 7 minutes. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Mark. Visionary communication is the path that John is working on tonight, and that's particularly interesting to me because it's also the one that I chose as my first path. If you will, please welcome John Vessels tonight for his speech entitled Self-Promotion. Self-Promotion, John Vessels.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark. Self-promotion. The theme or the goals of my speech are about public relations. And public relations is about self-promotion or about promotion of your company. And what I'm going to talk about tonight is the company that I've longed to accomplish, and that is as a photographer. Now, I still haven't been able to go over that full time, and I'm at the age now where I might not ever make it. But all over the years, I've always had a full-time job that kept me busy, and I've always managed to work in some photography on the sides in the past. Now, when I started all this, I was young. So younger than even some of y'all. But the whole thing we did back then was you got your name out by word of mouth. If you didn't work for somebody, it was kind of a lot of word of mouth. You showed your work, I had business cards for John Vessel's photography, and we'll get into that later. And, you know, doing friends' weddings, doing friends' modeling portfolios, things like that over the years. That's how I got promoted. And that was my public relations, was dealing with people and getting them work done, and then having that go on to their friends or coworkers or whomever that were looking for work and were looking for photography work. And then I would come out and help them. And it's just a gradual progression. One of my big things I did a long time ago in Amarillo is I actually sponsored a men's softball league. And so I was running around in these shirts and said John Vessel's photography. Now, you know, I love my name and everything, and I always kind of wanted to get it out in there, but John Vessel photography doesn't play well. And because where do you put that apostrophe? It's not Vessel apostrophe S, it's Vessels, and then you put that apostrophe on the end, and then people don't know what that is all about. It just freaks people out. So I probably should have always done it like photography by John Vessel, something to that effect. But it is what it is. One day I'll come up with actually maybe a name. But I haven't given up because, you know, can't ever give up on your dream. If you watch Flash Chats, when you give up your dream, you die. So I've still got a dream. But nowadays, it's totally different. Nowadays, some of the ways that you get have public relation, get yourself self-promoted or promoted out there is via the internet. Now, I have some ideas here on how we can promote ourselves on the internet, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. One of the ways is creating a Google profile. Get yourself out there as a business listing on Google. Now, I mean, we have that, Dallas Social Toastmasters. We're on Google. You search for us, Dallas Toastmasters. We're usually right there at the top because we have 2 Dallas and Toastmasters that get us right at the top of the list, which is great for us. So that's one way I can do it. I'm not ready to commit to that yet, so I haven't created a Google business profile yet. Another way is creating a website. Now, I created a website, oh my goodness, probably 20 years ago. And it still doesn't exist anymore. It's gone by the wayside and archived. But one of these days I might build me a new website when I get some work together I want to do. Now, one of the things you have to do if you're a photographer, you have to watermark all your pictures because anybody can capture a picture off the internet. And unless you have a copyright and a watermark on it, then they can just use it as their own, which I've had happen to me one time. And that wasn't even on the internet. It was a picture I did for someone. And next thing I know, I found it in a local magazine that he had given out to them and they used it. Now, I'm not a litigious person, but I let him know I wasn't pleased. But then my picture was out there and it's like, yeah, I got a whole bunch of the magazines. I was like, yeah, here I was published right here. Of course, I didn't get a little credit line, but that's life. I could show the original and the negatives. Most of y'all don't even know what negatives are, but that's beside the point. Now, a third way that you might get your name out there is what Dagan does is on YouTube. Now, I could get on YouTube and I could talk about what I do and how photography works and everything like that, but it doesn't really kind of gel with getting myself promoted to do photography work. I mean, they go, oh, look, he knows a lot about photography, but I'm trying to get somebody to hire me as a photographer, not just listen to my blog to learn about photography so they can be photographers. So the YouTube route hasn't really come to fruition for me. And another thing that you might consider doing is just doing a blog. And again, I'm going to blog how great a photographer I am, what I like to do, things like that. Well, that's always going to be short. I mean, it's like a TV commercial, like a little infomercial for like, you know, a minute or two. But then when somebody sees it, it's like, oh, he hasn't put anything else out there. And I guess I could talk about if I've gone and done some work, I can, tell them about what I've done, recently and show them some work. So those are three of the ways nowadays that are completely different in promoting yourself and getting your company or business known to the outside world. And I don't know if I'm ready to go international. That's one thing about the internet. You get yourself on there and you can be seen by anybody in the world. And although I'd love like a trip to Australia, I'm not ready for that. But, if somebody paid for my plane ticket and hired me to go out there, it's like, yeah, I'd do it, I guess. Depending on what they wanted me to shoot. If it's something I feel like I could do at a job. I actually had one chance a long time ago to work with Bell Helicopter when they were releasing a brand new helicopter. And I actually went and interviewed to travel with that helicopter to multiple locations around the world just to photograph the helicopter and stuff in all different places. But somebody else got it. But hey, that's life and that's the nature of business. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, John. I have to admit, excuse me, I have to admit, you and I have a lot in common that you may not realize, in that I also wanted to be in the photography business. I decided my company name would be Positive Light Photography. This is the website. At the risk of getting my website slash-dotted because everybody watches this video, which I don't think is very likely, but at the risk of everybody slash-dotting my website, Positive Light Photography is in fact my website. And like you say, every photo has got to have a copyright on it. This one goes back far enough that this one, believe it or not, was on film. I got a very nice high-res scan of the negative in order to do it. And this was just an amazing shot. If you've ever seen the fireworks that go up and make rings rather than balls, that's how this one was shot. Every one of those was one of the fireworks that makes rings. One of my favorite shots of all time. And I agree with you. You got to have a website, you got to have a name, you got to have a domain, you got to have everything. I need the same thing for the body painting business, which I don't have. All right, so let's see. That's going to be our prepared speaker tonight. And so I need to ask for a timer's report. Timer, Levi, how did John do on his time tonight?
Yes, John came in right at 7 minutes and 26 seconds. So good job, John.
All right. Right on the edge there, John, but you got it. That's what counts. All right. Our next section of the meeting is what we move on to. Oops. Yeah, since we don't have more than one speaker, we don't have to do a vote. So I'm going to skip that, which means we go on to our table topics portion of the meeting. Table topics this evening is going to be run by Rob Giles. Rob, are you ready to take over?
I am ready, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you so much.
Fellow members, table topics is our improvisational portion of the meeting. The chance for us to learn how to improve speaking off the cuff. And tonight, we are going to try to incorporate the theme of the meeting, Cinco de Mayo. But let me go over a couple of ground rules first for you as far as table topics is concerned. One, you have to speak between 1 and 2.5 minutes. You have to reach at least 1 minute in order to qualify, and you cannot exceed more than 2.5 minutes in order to qualify. So keep that in mind. Keep your timer on your screen if you can, pin them if you need to. And your timer tonight is Levi. So make sure that he's on your screen. You can see him as you are up speaking as a table topic contestant. The next qualification is using the word of the day. You can carouse about it, whatever you want to do, just use it. And if you use the word of the day, you should be able to see that if you keep our grammarian on screen, because he has it as part of his virtual background, and that is Dagan Newland. So those are the two things that you need to keep in mind as topic contestants in order to qualify. So use the word of the day and stay within 1 to 2.5 minutes. Our theme tonight, Cinco de Mayo. I love this holiday, and I'll get into at least one story regarding myself and this holiday a little while back, but I'll do it down the road a little bit here. First, I want to kind of reflect upon what Mark had said about, how much food or how many avocados are consumed, how much tequila is consumed. I don't know whether this it doesn't sound like it makes the conversion from metric to, and I don't know what it's called, I guess standard. I don't know what the other unit of measurement, but what I looked up and saw was 335,000 gallons of tequila every Cinco de Mayo. Now, maybe that was just in the US, I don't know. But regardless, whether it's millions of liters or 100,000s of gallons, that's a lot of tequila. But tequila goes into a few different drinks, and some of us enjoy tequila all on its own. I'm not one of those people who does that. But I do have a favorite drink, and it is a margarita, at least on Cinco de Mayo. And I would like to ask, what is your preferred drink? Is it cerveza? Is it margarita? What is it and why? And this question actually is going to go to Jessica. Jessica, tell us a little bit about your favorite drink for Cinco de Mayo.
Thank you, Rob. I would just follow the typical norm and say that on Cinco de Mayo, my favorite drink would have to be a margarita. So cheers. I don't drink often, but when I do try to stick to something that has less of a caloric intake. And I actually believe that tequila is one of the, I wouldn't say healthy, but one of the better options when you're trying to watch, your calorie intake and just your overall, I guess health's not a good word because alcohol is not healthy, but I guess just your overall lifestyle. And so that is definitely why I do stick to tequila when I am out carousing with friends or just in any kind of social event. I am not a fan of scotch or whiskey or anything that is very potent or strong. The only reason why I drink beer is if I'm at a brewery, which I always have trouble pronouncing, brewery. And that is really it aside from drinking. I mean, it's really only on social occasions. And ironically, I do have a bar behind me, but again, it's only if friends come over or family or anyone like that. So that is why I drink margaritas on Cinco de Mayo. And back to you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I will say this, at work over the past probably 2 months, because things have been so crazy busy for myself and my colleagues at my office, we often talk about having our own little margarita machine in there for some of the rougher days. And margaritas, I think, are the most common and most probably well known for a holiday like Cinco de Mayo. So thank you very much, Jessica. You have drinking on Cinco de Mayo. We also have a lot of avocados that are consumed, and Mexican or Tex-Mex food, that's one of my favorite meals, and I have a favorite place that I go. What I want to ask is, and I have a few different foods that I love that are Tex-Mex, but I want to ask, what is your preferred food? And actually give me like maybe the top 2 or 3 and why. This question is going to go to Lisa.
Okay, thank you, Rob. My favorite food, ironically, would be on the top of the list, avocados. I eat avocados quite frequently. It is always a bummer when you go to eat one and it is not ripe enough and you have to wait to make guacamole. That is so frustrating when you go to make the avocado and it is not ripe enough to mash it to where you can get the perfect avocado dip. So when you go to the store, you always have to find the perfect avocados and you have to constantly like squish them to where you have to find the the just right avocado. And so that's a trick that you have to find when you are looking for the perfect avocado to make guacamole. So that is my my thing. I do enjoy tacos, but I prefer crispy tacos over soft tacos. So that is a thing, but I do enjoy Tex-Mex overall. So that would be some of my favorite foods. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I agree. You know, it's tough sometimes depending on where you're going for those avocados. Oftentimes, if I'm not going to like Central Market, I go to the avocado section and they're either hard as a rock or they're softer than, well, I'm not going to say what they're softer than, but they're too soft. Let's just say that. So it's tough. You got to find that nicely just ripe avocado that can, you know, that way you can use it for whatever, whether it's going to be making guacamole or something else. But I agree. Avocados has got to be one of my top 3 as far as foods in general, much less on or much more on Cinco de Mayo. Over the past weekend, we had our District 50 roundup, and we had a ton of people all dressed up, a lot of people wearing hats. I want to know if you were going to wear some Mexican garb on Cinco de Mayo or really any other day, what would be the garb that you would choose to wear? And this one is going to go to our timer, actually, Levi. So Mark Shorto, could you time Levi while he answers this question?
Give me 1 second to grab it.
All right, no worries.
Got it?
All right, so one Mexican garb that I would wear on Cinco de Mayo. Well, actually, I'm kind of lucky where I am actually half Mexican. My mom's side is from El Paso, so I do have a little bit of Mexican heritage in me. And as a kid, I had a sombrero and a poncho. If I had to choose one, I would choose a poncho. The reason being, it's quite a versatile piece of your outfit. It can be used in the cold to provide some warmth as kind of a vest-like product for your chest. You could also possibly buy a rain poncho. Earlier, I don't know where you guys live, but it was storming outside of my office. So a nice rain poncho would have been quite nice to avoid any type of carouse from the rain, a very strong carouse rain. A poncho is super effective to avoid off the drunkenness of the rain. That being said, it's also a cool little party tool, especially in Cinco de Mayo. Adds a little bit of flavor to your style. So imagine me, I wear a suit to work. So a poncho on top of a suit would be pretty funny. Along with, I'm also drinking a nice Sapporo beer. It's not a Mexican beer, it's Japanese beer, but a nice Sapporo and a poncho would be pretty good little combination after work to enjoy the happy hour. But yes, my choice of garment of Mexican style garment would be the poncho. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Levi. Yes, a nice cool cerveza is a great way to go, I think, on any day. So thank you very much for your answer. And one of the things that you talked about was carousing and, that kind of drunken nature that some of us might happen upon throughout our lives and sometimes on Cinco de Mayo. For myself, I would say it was probably 8 or 9 years ago, maybe it was a little bit more, but I think it was around 8 or 9 years ago. I had kind of a opportunity to just kind of indulge myself in more than one margarita, more than 2 margaritas. I think it was 3 or 4. I stopped counting at that point, but it was a lot of top shelf stuff coming into the margarita, at least after the second one. At least that's what I was requesting. Perhaps I didn't know at that point whether the good stuff was actually going in there or not. I just know that I felt pretty good at that point. However, I was supposed to go pick up a friend at the airport and I couldn't do that because, well, I was just a little bit over the limit there. I want to ask our next table topic contestant, and this is actually going to be our last table topic contestant for the evening. And I want you to be sure that you have Levi, in view as timer. It's going to go to someone in a second. I'll let you know. But drunk. Have you ever been drunk on Cinco de Mayo or any other day? And if you haven't, why not? this question goes to Mr. Dagan Newland.
All right, so the question is, have I been drunk on Cinco de Mayo or any time? And I'll have to say this big fat yes. But that's in my younger years. I haven't been drunk in a long, long time. Matter of fact, I got a few horror stories about that, but I'll talk about one. This is actually when I was in the military. I was stationed in Korea. And over there wasn't a drinking age, so I was still under 21 when I was stationed in Korea, and they had this really nice pear. It's not really a wine, but it's more like a champagne, pear champagne type thing. And man, it's so good. And I had like probably 2.5, 3 bottles of it in one night. And man, I was so sick that night when I got back to the barracks. I don't want to tell you what happened, but you probably get the idea. But it was just so bad. And after that, I tried again, like, a couple days later. I tried again, and it just set me off. I couldn't drink it. It just tasted nasty after that. So, but yeah, I've been a few times drunk when I was in Korea, and I really hate to admit it, but pretty much every weekend that we had off, we'd go out off post and go drinking. So I was quite drunk many times that year. And of course, but when I came back, I was still underage when I came back. And I was a good boy and did not drink, and again, until I turned 21. So, which is probably a good thing for me. If not, I probably could have turned out to be an alcoholic, but I was glad I was a good boy. And of course, in Korea, there's a lot of times that people would and get, crowds and get in fights. And so, but that was never me. I was not one of those guys to do that. So, but anyway, yes, I've been drunk many times. Back to you, Table Topic Master.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Yes, while you're drunk, you may feel great, but there's always the other side of it. And a lot of times that's when you wake up. Sometimes it's even before that. Sometimes you don't even go to sleep and you eventually come around to that hangover. So I've definitely been there as well. And I believe I was there on that one night when I was supposed to pick up my friend. So at this point, we're going to conclude table topics, and we're going to ask for our timers report. Mr. Timer, did all of our table topic contestants qualify on time?
Yes, we're all above 1 minute and all within the 2 minutes, 30 seconds. So good job, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Levi. And our next qualification is going to be told by our grammarian. Mr. Grammarian, did everybody use the word of the day?
Everybody except Lisa.
Okay. All right. Well, that is too bad, but we still have 3 people that you can vote on. So please go ahead and send a private chat for who you think did the best in our table topic session tonight. And that would be between between Jessica, who talked about her preferred drink, which was margarita. And then also Levi, who talked about what garb would he wear. And pretty much a poncho was his go-to garb for multiple reasons. And then finally, Dagan, who he had to admit this time that, yeah, he's been drunk before and many times. And maybe he was actually involved in a little carousing, who knows? So go ahead and vote for one of them. Send your private chat to Barry. And yes, as Barry noted in our chat, send it privately to Barry so that he's the only one who knows who you voted for. At this point, we're going to move our meeting. Well, let me ask Mr. Toastmaster, do you need to continue on with the theme, or do you want me to send it directly over to the general evaluator?
Negatory, you can go ahead and send it directly to our GE.
All right. Please help me to welcome our general evaluator for the evening, Ms. Karen Lee. Karen, take it away.
And this portion of the meeting is our evaluation portion of the meeting. And we will have our evaluator evaluate our formal speaker, and then I will give my impression of the meeting. So please help me to welcome our evaluator, Mark Sims, who's evaluating John Vessel's speech self-promotion. Mark.
Thank you, Karen. And John, I enjoyed your speech. I want to first discuss what I think you excelled on. For starters, we at times learned things about each other that we didn't know. And that's one of the great things about speaking, because you talk on a subject and you end up talking on yourself. I maybe had a vague recollection you had a connection to West Texas, but somehow Amarillo had not stuck in my mind, but you mentioned that tonight. I had no idea that you had such a strong interest in photography. I mean, that just draws a blank. And then the personal anecdote about interviewing to get a job traveling with a helicopter produced by Bell Helicopters, that is just a great example on how far you've taken this, that your interest was this strong. So really great new information about yourself, which I found interesting. And I really, really liked the content, which I see as the contrast between some of the old school methods of self-promotion versus the newer type. And you got into some good specifics on the pros and the cons. For example, you went over the old methods, the word of mouth, the business cards, referrals, which are still very valid. But I really enjoyed that was thinking totally outside the box on sponsoring a local softball team with your company's name on their back. That was really interesting. That showed a great initiative on your part. And even today, it would be a very good idea. But then you also got into some very good specifics on pros and cons on some of the more current technology-based methods. Of course, you have a Google profile, a website, and you discuss very well the pros and cons on YouTube, that if you're just trying to get yourself hired, it's not as effective as if you're trying to show someone how to do something. And then you brought up a very incisive point on the watermark thing on the pictures. And a few years ago, I think I was trying to get some copy made of a picture of myself, and I couldn't do it because the person I was talking to pointed out that it was copyrighted, and I'd have to get some permission from them first. So that was a very practical, very realistic point. What you can work on, again, since this was a self-promotion speech, I think maybe it could have been more energetic. I mean, you were very comfortable, very casual in your discussion, and maybe a little more forceful. And then also you at one point said you weren't sure how you were going to take the camera business now. And if you're trying to promote yourself, maybe a little more directness or maybe a little more clarity there in your plans. Also, the sidebar you went into on the dilemma of the apostrophes on the back of the softball team t-shirts took up a little bit of time, almost made you run over. And that was another thing. It seemed like the ending was pretty abrupt, and that apparently was a necessity because you were really bumping up against the grace period for the speech time. Now, to really, really excel, man, maybe you could have showed us an example of a picture. I mean, not numerous ones, but whichever picture you've taken that was the most unusual or one you're really, really proud of, to show us that, hey, here's an example of my work and here's why you would want to hire me. But so those are my thoughts. And overall, again, it was a very informative and very interesting speech. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mark. I heard Mark, let's see, I need to ask for the timers report. Did our
Yes.
evaluator qualify?
Yes, Mark, you went at 4 minutes and 5 seconds, a little bit over.
Oh, okay. Well,
So I can't give John advice anymore on talking too long.
Well, I did hear a very balanced evaluation. You're very positive, and you gave him about 4 or 5 different suggestions for improvement in your speech. I'll go ahead and give him our report. Also, we did start a little bit over our over 6:45, we were helping folks that needed checklists and to find them for our meeting. Mark did also give us a lot of interesting facts about Cinco de Mayo. I learned a lot about Cinco de Mayo that I didn't know in the past. Also, after John gave his speech, Mark showed us his pictures from Positive Light Photography. Our table topics questions also did mirror the theme of the meeting. I'll also go ahead at this time and ask for each of our duty holders to give their reports. Jessica, will you give us your report as our posture bell duty holder?
Yes. I am getting lost in, so Mark or anyone who has been here for a long time, I feel like I haven't seen you guys in like 5 years. So am I getting this right? Am I to essentially evaluate or give a posture reading of everyone who talked?
Correct. It's a posture reading on anyone who you have seen, whatever you can comment on, given that you can't see that much of them.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you what I have. I've been trying to keep track alongside actually paying attention, listening to what you guys were saying. So Mark Sims, I would say to position your camera, I guess, farther away from your face so that we can get a better angle and frame. It's a little unsettling. I feel like I'm kind of looking up at your face versus looking at you, but great eye contact. You could tell that you were focused and paying attention. And then John Vessels, I really liked your use of hand gestures throughout your speech when explaining like things like your name. Your hand gestures and your speech, definitely they coincided, so it wasn't distracting or anything like that. Everything just kind of flowed seamlessly. Your facial expressions were also very warm and inviting. You seemed like everything you were saying was very sincere. For Barry, it was a little noticeable that you were reading off of a script, but overall, I think your camera angle is good. The way that you're positioned, your background is blurred, so that's not distracting as well. For Rob, you had great use of hand gestures. I thought it was hysterical, the fact that you literally picked up your cat and seemed to throw him or her across the room. That was great. Thank you for that. I hope they're okay. Lisa, again, just to stay on the theme of camera angles, I would say it looks almost as if your head's just kind of floating there. I would say just incorporate at least your shoulders just so we can have a better frame. Mark Schroeder, you are just wonderful in all that you do. I love your background. I would say maybe just a little fidgeting in your chair, but other than that, you seem very comfortable and natural. Levi, I would say along with Lisa, just show a little bit more of your shoulders just so we have a better frame. It's almost like 75% of your background and then 25% of your face. So maybe even just come like to the center. And I can't talk because my position right now is awful, but I don't have a desk here. So, and then it seemed like you were almost reading off notes during your table topics. I don't know if you were or weren't, but maybe that's a possibility. Dagan, I would say just a little bit of touching your face and your hat, and then not really a whole lot of eye contact with the camera. But I got kind of lost in just listening to your story because it was intriguing. It wasn't that noticeable. So thank you for sharing your story. And then Karen Lee, again, just with the camera angles, I would say just give us a better frame of shoulders and head. And you had really good eye contact with the camera as well. And who am I missing? Anyone?
I don't think you missed anybody.
I think you got it.
Okay, back to you, General Evaluator.
Okay, our next duty holder is our counter, Lisa Mistel.
Okay, mine is not anywhere near as detailed as Jessica's. But you did a really good job on that.
Thank you.
So on yours, I noticed you used a couple of times in your table topics, and then in your evaluation, you used more than you used which I found interesting. Levi, you had a couple of uhs. Dagan, you used quite a few times, and you also used the word like quite a few times. But other than that, I think everybody did a really good job. That's all that I heard that was distracting. Thank you. Back to you, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Our next duty holder report is our grammarian, Dagan Newland.
All right, thank you. I also want to say that was definitely a really good report for posture monitor on a Zoom call. So really awesome, Jessica. And for my part, mine's gonna be kind of short and sweet as well. I think everybody spoke as the way I know everybody speaks so far. Nothing really glaring that was good or bad. I did have a particular word that John said. He said in his speech, he said not the tigtish person. I'm not sure if I said that right, but I didn't know what the tigtish was, so I had to look it up real quick. So that was interesting to me. And Jessica said caloric intake in her when she was talking, and I don't really hear that much. People say calories and things like that, but I haven't heard caloric in a while, so that was good too. So overall, everybody
YouTube,
did really
wait
good.
till mom.
Huh?
Sorry about that. My kid
Oh.
yelling at me. Apologize.
All right, so back to you, Madam Grammarian. I mean, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Dagan. Also, at this time, it's time to ask for a vote for the best of the big three, and that would be our Toastmaster, Mark Schroeder, our Table Topics Master, Rob Giles, or myself as your General Evaluator. If you go ahead and vote for the best of the big three and send your votes to Barry as our vote counter. And at this time, we'll have asked for Rob to handle our business meeting, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. I don't really have a whole lot of items to go over this evening. We have no guests, so we won't ask for any guests to give us their feedback tonight. I will mention from this past weekend, as I talked about, it was our district conference roundup. And so we did have a lot of people that were wearing cowboy hats or faux hats and some other garb as well, some boots, as well as some vests and all things Texas and in that kind of realm. It was fun. I don't know if anybody was able to connect via Zoom, or I didn't see anybody there at the conference, but I know I had a great time. There were some great keynote speakers, and I hope that somebody was able to go ahead and, yeah, you could hear him, huh? I hope that somebody was able to get in and actually at least participate or enjoy some of it through Zoom, because there were some good education sessions, including gestures and stage use and things like that. So there's a variety of different things, humor, and the keynote speakers were great. As far as our club is concerned, a couple of things that I'm just going to reiterate upon, or a few things I'm going to reiterate upon. One, next week, we are again back in Zoom only. So keep that in mind, unless something strange happens, which at this point, not likely to happen, but it'll be Zoom only next week. First week of June is going to be our officer elections. So if you're interested in becoming one of the officers, there's 7 different officer positions. And that is the president, VP of education, VP of membership, VP of PR, public relations, our secretary, our treasurer, and our sergeant at arms. So those are the 7 officer roles. If you're interested in any of them, you're welcome to throw your hat in the ring for those. If you have any questions about any of them, you're welcome to reach out to any of our more seasoned members, who most of them are officers actually at the moment. And we're happy to explain some of those duties that you'd be involved with and in. I do recommend it, even if you just, whatever role you take on, you have a chance to be a little bit more influential and learn a little bit what's going on behind the scenes. And you have some impact on where our club is going. So I recommend at least thinking about it and then asking questions as you need to. So that's going to be the first week of June. So we got a little time, but throw your hat in the ring as early as possible. If we do have multiple people vying for the same officer role, we will have a debate where you get to do a little table topics. You can promote yourself. And, John just gave us some good ways to promote, or good examples on how you might promote yourself. And you compete in a debate in order to find out, who could be the best at one particular officer role. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that at the end of our Toastmaster year, and our Toastmaster year runs from July 1st through June 30th. So at the end of this Toastmaster year, which again is at June 30th, we're going to stop doing our hybrid meetings at that point, at least indefinitely. If something changes as far as COVID or something else that might allow us to, or I guess, direct us into having hybrid options again down the road, then maybe we do it. But keep that in mind, that at the beginning of the next Toastmaster year, July 1st, that we won't be having hybrid meetings at that point. Those are the only pieces of news that I have. Anybody else have any old news, new news that they want to bring up? Any of our officers, anything that I might have left out? Okay. All right. No takers on that. All right. So
the hybrid meetings you said, so are you saying you want in person only or Zoom only?
It'll be in person only, except maybe on rare occasions where we have no venue in order to go to, such as what we're doing this week and next week.
Okay.
So
yeah, I would expect, as long, if before Zoom, we always would try to find a restaurant, and we have the issue of being able to find a restaurant that's available on a short notice sometimes. And it would be a Denny's or it would be the Central Market, and we'd usually have to pay them a fee. And Zoom is just a lot cheaper and easier at this point since we've got it. So I think in general, rather than mess with that, if it's during the next 6 months or so while we still have Zoom accounts, we'll probably just continue to use Zoom.
Thank you very much, Mark. So that's all the news that I have, unless somebody else has a question or a comment regarding any of the news that I just, I guess, imparted upon you. Then we will go ahead and move to find out who our winners are for today's Toastmasters meeting. So let's go ahead and ask our vote counter for the evening. Barry, would you tell us who are the winners tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master? Yes, you're supposed to say. So the winner, well, best speaker, of course, was John. Great job, John. Best table topics was Dagan. Very close vote there, Dagan. The best evaluator, I wasn't 100% sure what I'm supposed to do here, but I'm voting on whoever evaluated the best?
It's just for the person or people who are evaluating the prepared speeches. So in this case, there was only one. It was Mark Sims.
Oh, okay.
And I managed to disqualify myself, Barry. So
Okay,
I lost
Mark.
in a one-man contest, buddy.
Okay, yep. And the best of the big three was Mark. Back to you, Mr. Topic Master, I believe.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Barry, we appreciate that. Congratulations to our winners. And Mark Sims, great evaluation. You should be proud of yourself. You're falling, it's because of the proximity in Zoom. Maybe I'm below you in the square below you. Who knows? It's causing you to go over time. I don't know. But congratulations to everybody. Great speech, John. Great evaluation. Great topic answers. And I appreciate the theme. And I'm going to call this meeting to a close. Thank you all for joining us.
All right, Rob, thank you. But I have to admit, this is not Hollywood Squares. There's not somebody below you in a square below you. We're not exactly doing that. So I think you may be a little bit disoriented there, but that's okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording in 3, 2,